Going to have a look at all the international newspapers now. And Florence Film knows with us here on set. Hurricane Sandy, inevitably, I suppose, getting an awful lot of attention. Lots of pictures, too.
That's right. A lot of the American media is calling the superstorm Frankenstorm. It's on the front page of the Wall Street Journal Asia with a very menacing photo of, graphic of Sandy as it approaches the United States. It's also on the cover of the Times here, where it says that residents flee as New York faces its Katrina moment. So very scary thoughts there. China Daily also has a picture of the storm hitting Nags Head in North Carolina, and it says that it's waves of change because the hurricane has forced both presidential candidates to change their schedules in the run-up to the very last few days before the election. And in fact, there's an interesting article in the Christian Science Monitor which wonders, could this hurricane actually change the outcome of the presidential race? Now, it's definitely scrambled, as I said, this last week ahead of the election, and it's raised doubts about Election Day. Now, the big issue, the big reason why it could make a big change is because the race is so tight, and it could either change the results or postpone them in swing states. Now, several things that could be affected by the storm are, for instance, early voting. A lot of people might have trouble getting to the polls, or in certain cases, like in Maryland, they've actually stopped early voting. On top of that, polling stations could be damaged, so that could change how people vote on Election Day. Also, due to a loss of power, people won't be seeing as many political ads, and as we've seen, these can be very influential, especially in the last days. Now, a lot also depends on the aftermath and just how the government responds to any sort of disaster, if there were to be one. If, for instance, if Romney is seen as taking a political advantage of any kind of disaster, that could play against him. But if the federal response is judged inadequate, that could play against Obama. At the same time, nations are seen to rally behind their president in a time of natural disaster. So it's unclear just what the consequences will be, but it seems likely that there will be some.
Yeah, it's very complicated, isn't it? And the other thing you've noticed, in fact, in the papers is quite a few of the papers sort of coming out in favour of one candidate or the other.
That's right. Now, in the New York Times over the weekend, in their editorial, they endorsed Obama. Now, that's in the International Herald Tribune today. They say that the choice is clear, that Obama has earned a second term. The International Herald Tribune and the New York Times agree with his policies and applaud his achievements, whether that concerns health care, the economy, or foreign affairs. And according to this editorial, it says that Romney offers dangerous ideas when he offers any ideas. Now, it's interesting to see what other papers are saying. Other papers, for instance, have endorsed Romney. Obviously, for instance, the New York Post. Now, they endorsed Romney last week, but in the editorial, the latest editorial, once again, they back Romney and say that it's time to evict the deceiving amateurs, and by that they mean Obama. Now, so it's definitely going to be a tight race, but if you need help just understanding this election, there's a really good cartoon in the International Herald Tribune, perhaps a dumbed-down version of the electoral map. Yeah. There you see it. Very huge Ohio there. So apparently it's a huge state. On the south, in the south, you have oilmen and snake handlers, and in the northeast, you've got the 47%.
That sums it all up for me. Wonderful stuff, actually. Well spotted. Now, moving on to another aspect of the US presidential debate, you found a shark, Laswat, looking at the race, how it's affecting the situation in Syria.
That's right. Now, this is the Pan-Arab paper that's based in London. Now, it says that, as expected, the ceasefire over Eid al-Adha was broken by both sides, first and foremost, by the regime. And it says that Bashar al-Assad can basically do whatever he wants until the outcome of the presidential election, because there will be no developments on the international front. There will be no political agreement regarding Syria until after the election. Now, the article does point out, however, that whoever wins the election will take action on Syria, but until then, violence is going to continue.
And finally, a cabinet reshuffle in India is getting some coverage right across the world.
That's right, starting in Gulf News. So this happened yesterday. There was a major reshuffle. 22 new ministers were sworn in. According to Gulf News, this is a crucial reshuffle. The government was facing criticism of corruption. It's interesting to note, however, that the Indian press is a little less optimistic. For instance, the Times of India says this reshuffle doesn't mean that there's going to be the reboot of governance. It says that basically the government is still has old-fashioned politics, and this is not the upgrade that the government needed.
And still trying to solve that Rubik's Cube there as well. Florence, thanks very much. Florence Villeneuve with the International Papers on Full Space.